Hey, it's Eric Newcomer. I'm here with the CEO of Flexport, Ryan Petersen. You are logistics and how the world works whisperer whenever there's some crisis of the physical world. And so here again, we turn to you as Trump's tariffs ask everybody, how do things actually move around the world? Ryan, thanks for joining.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm like a hurricane reporter. He's just like always in the middle of a Trump mess.
Exactly. Whenever there's a canal jammed up or weird policies, yeah, we come to you. So, do you think like the Silicon Valley set is sort of aligned with Trump? Do you think all of us are like pretty free marketer, or do you think there is a subset here that agrees with the tariffs, or what's your read on like the Silicon Valley like point of view on the tariffs?
Folks I've talked to are big advocates of the Trumps, and some of whom have gone to work for Trump are pretty upset about the tariffs themselves.
Right.
Sort of violate some of they were hoping for a very libertarian, like, let's deregulate. It wasn't just about pronouns. They were like, can we deregulate the economy and shift towards like we're all about growth. That's my core view, is that growth is the most important economic issue, because so many of our other problems were 7% growth for 10 years, you're twice as rich. If you could achieve that, like, and everybody was twice as rich, you would, even if it was not equally distributed, if the government would have twice as much tax revenue, we'd solve so many of our.
Well, that's why you have one party that says we'll definitely not blow up the economy, but maybe we'll slightly slow it down. Another says 20% we blow it up, and then like a bunch of funds. I don't know, but yeah.
Another thing, I sort of try not to engage in any argument unless I think I can argue the other side's point of view better than they can. And so I think there's some valid reasons. Certainly, they're after some noble goals here. Is like the United States should industrialize more. Tariffs, by the way, we have a $2 trillion deficit every year that's unsustainable. So like tariffs are another form of taxes. Maybe it's better than income tax.
I feel like the problem with the tariff argument is that the Trump administration is not doing a good job of successfully articulating one coherent argument. Like some of the arguments contradict themselves.
There are 3 or 4 good ones for it in a national security environment. I mean, we got to have some manufacturing, because you're not being able to make any ships in America or like anything else. It's not good in a situation where there's a war. So there's plenty of good arguments for it. And yet it's just a very complex system that nobody understands. I'm not even saying because they're dumb. It's just there's no one who can understand all the. Just look at one of these infographics.
That's the beauty of markets and not central planning. It feels like the Republican communist Mao all of a sudden. It's like, we're going to tell you how to build your like iPhones.
And certainly the government sets the rules and rule of law. And there's lots of reasons why government wants to change course and drive things and have a national strategy and all of that. But markets need a time to adapt. They need to be able, we're a bit like the analogy I've been using is we're like a 60-year-old man who hasn't been to the gym in 30 years and is going to go back and remembers how good he was when he was 30 and he could deadlift, 600 pounds and he gets a herniated disc. And so we got to like ease into.
But we're not a 60-year-old man. We're like a great, banker and a great coder and a great money lender to all the world. It's just like on a lot of domains we're in the best shape of the world, and sure, we're not ready to like go work in a manufacturing
but anyways, I'm selling my own book. Tariffs are bad for my business, so obviously
how much is Silicon Valley and like startups, how much are they going to be hit by this? Like how much do you think they're really dependent on supply chains, or it's just it's a software business, no tariffs? Or how do you think about the effect for Silicon Valley?
Chips, semiconductors in general were exempted. So I think that was people they dodged a bullet there. That's probably the biggest deal. But, computers were not. So you now have to import the chip. I'm seeing a lot of conversations going between technologists who are like, oh, if I can't import a graphics card, would be taxed, even though the graphics card, by far the most expensive part of it is the GPU. The GPU is duty free, but the graphics card is not. And you're going to pay on the full amount of the graphics, includes the semiconductor. So now maybe this is Galaxy Brain incentive to create, graphics cards in the United States, because you can import the chip duty free, but now you have to assemble it in the US.
If we become the people that are like, oh yeah, in America, you always have to assemble your computer at the last mile because, of some weird government regulation. It feels antithetical
they need to study more like how East Asia actually succeeded in industrializing, because yeah, of course you can do those kinds of rules, and America has the power because we have such a big consumer market, and so people will play the game, and you can build a big company. But like to actually know you're building a good company, you got to be able to export. That was the rule that these Asian governments set. The ones who succeeded in building up industries was where they actually exported, and because export is proof that you're making a competitive product, a competitive company. If no one around the world buys your stuff, then all you've done is protected your market and hurt your own consumers, to create you moved wealth around inside your own country. But if your policies are really working for industrialization, the test is, do people abroad buy your products? And you can see the difference. Like in Malaysia, they tried to industrialize, but nobody wanted. You never heard of a Malaysian car. Only if you go to Malaysia, you would see them. They were unsuccessful in creating a competitive company that could export. Whereas Hyundai, Japan and Korea famously, and now China have become really good at exporting cars. So, as the United States embarks on reindustrializing to the extent that we're capable, the ultimate test is, do people in other countries buy our stuff? Not, can we just manufacture some GPUs here because the law requires it like that, or rather some graphics cards assembling parts from other countries like that.
Let's dive into the American auto industry for a second, because that, in some ways, it's like we're failing to get other countries. Trump is making a big deal of Japan not buying American cars. Do you have, this is a little far afield, but do you have a point of view on whether these countries are really setting up barriers that mean that the American automakers are fighting an unfair fight, or you think it's just our product is not competitive with what they can buy?
Well, Teslas are pretty competitive. They're pretty awesome cars. Tesla's done really well in China, but they make them in China, the ones that are sold. And by the way, Tesla, when you go to China, Tesla's way behind. The cars are so far beyond in quality and build quality and features. And I haven't actually driven.
What is it, BYD? Everyone is so excited about them. In some ways, the US, we're getting denied now. We're the ones with the sort of second-rate products. Yeah,
I'm afraid to drive on Chinese roads, but riding in the backseat, they're freaking amazing. And it doesn't take much to just get into one of the Detroit automakers and say that these products aren't as good. But how did that happen? And I think, how did the Chinese or the Koreans or Japanese get so good at manufacturing? And I think there's definitely some of what the administration is alleging is valid. They did a great job in their industrial policies, a great job from their perspective of, they provided subsidies, free land, factories, they repressed labor movements. They made organized labor illegal in Korea. Korea mandated a 6-day work week. I mean, these are things that help the manufacturing sector go. And so, currency, likely there's evidence for that. I mean, in Vietnam has been booming. I think they've had 8% annual GDP growth for the last several years in a row. And yet their currency has gone down in value. It's kind of weird, booming that much. You would think your currency so many dollars are flowing in, the currency should appreciate, but it goes down. So clearly there's something going on there. I'm not like a macroeconomist on any level, but I could kind of basic logic. Like if you grow that much and so much manufacturing is coming, more dollars are flowing in, it should increase your currency. So there's some validity to a lot of this stuff. Some of the challenge becomes we're supposed to be like this free market country. We don't want our government to be involved in private industry. And so we don't really, TSMC is a great example where the guy, Morris Chang, was working for Texas Instruments and spent 30 years in the US and decided he wanted to start a foundry. And nobody in the US wanted to back such a capital intensive business. And so he went to Taiwan. The Taiwanese government funded it. So but
you sort of brought a bunch of more free market solutions up. It's the government could have its own investment bank where it backs some of these projects, or we could have, not be so friendly to unions, or at least, create some resistance to them. There are things that we could do that would allow the markets to roam more free to deliver results.
And I think it's a reasonable, if the other side is not embracing free markets, then you're sort of dumb if you allow yourself to have dogma that just makes you lose, your companies lose. I mean, even Boeing is a good example. Boeing private market company emerged from the private markets. Airbus was created by four governments that decided they wanted to have it, and they got tons of subsidies. In the U.S., Boeing sued at the World Trade Organization and won the suit, and it's still going through endless, long, process.
Yeah, I'm not like no tariffs. I mean, I do think it's like if you're gonna do central planning, you need to be able to do the planning and focus on a particular goal and sort of think it through and understand what the objective is. And going after every country at the same time makes that very difficult.
We'll see. I think a lot of this is. I hope a lot of this is negotiating, and Trump wants to make deals. So hopefully, the next few weeks we see some deals get done to bring these tariffs back down. And a lot of countries.
Do you think we could end up in a better place than we started before he announced the tariffs? Or are we just trying to dig out of this hole?
It's really hard to say because it's like hard to know because their stated goal is reindustrialization, and they allege that the reason America deindustrialized was these people took our jobs because of free trade. So then, if you come out and you're like, "Oh, we made these deals for more free trade,"
right?
It's a little incongruous with the stated goal or the stated disease and what caused it. I'm hopeful because I don't really believe that narrative. I'm hopeful that we might, like EU announced they would go to zero tariffs. So is Vietnam, Cambodia said 5, Israel, India, like a lot of these countries have said that. So
would that be an improvement? And zoom in on Europe for a second. Like what is, we've talked about Asia and Latin America. What's all this meant for Europe? And if we're doing zero tariffs with Europe, is that a better outcome than where we started?
It would be. I mean, from my view, I mean, I would prefer to have low tariffs. I mean, I don't think that's going to be enough to satisfy the Trump administration. Their view is Europe has all these and in general, their view is that there's all these non-tariff barriers, industrial policies, like what I was getting at, subsidized credits, these in general for manufacturing, organized for pressing labor, currency, or like in Europe's case, their big allegations are around non-scientific allegations of like they don't accept American GMO corn. You can't export anything genetically modified to Europe. The American argument has always been, well, these things have been proven safe by science and health.
But it's insane because at the same time, you've got RFK saying like, oh, American food, you eat it and like things go bad. But if you go to Europe, you're fine. It's like, what, we're going to force them to eat the corn that we're like worried about?
Well, it is a bit of a band of misfits in there with RFK. And
I know that. You could make hay all day of their inconsistencies,
But that's been the longest running feud between the United States and Europe is they won't accept our farm products. Now, how much of that is truly about science and how much of it is like, the European farmer will get wiped out by America's Midwest. Like the plains are insane. The Great Plains, we produce so much food that they'll, probably wipe out all the farmers in France. And then, you like going to France and seeing those nice farms and stuff. And they like having jobs. So I get their point of view from that stance too.
Are you bullish or bearish on the stock market, or your general sense that we've like taken our medicine versus like there's a lot of pain to go, or what's your general read on?
I don't know, man. I don't own any. I only own one public stock. It's GameStop. I still have my shares from that.
You're like, that shows your sort of nihilism about the markets. It's like the only stock I bet on is pure gambling. It admits
I have
what
10
it is.
shares. I'm letting it ride. No, I have no idea. I'm not a public market investor for probably, I should have some in the index or something, but mostly I've just been Flexport. Everything's tied up in Flexport. I'm definitely like, this is really ugly for, they're going to have to do a lot of magic to repair things and allow not to have mass bankruptcy in really very large sectors of our economy of companies that buy internationally, buy and sell. I think there's a lot of stuff in this that's going to hurt U.S. export. Obviously, I'm very close to that problem because it's a lot of our own customers. So worried about our customer base, how they're going to make it through this. Thankfully, Flexport's in a well-capitalized situation, so we're going to be able to ride out the other side and be hopefully in a better place than ever in a couple of years when we get, I think we get to the other side of this. And we've been through worse as a civilization. It's not World War II level catastrophe. I don't think it's Great Depression or anything like that, but in our sector, it's going to be pretty brutal.
Are you purely international? Or what does this mean for Flexport's business? Is there we'll do stuff inside the US, or you rely on doing things cross-border?
We've made a couple acquisitions that have made us a big player in the domestic side. So we bought Convoy and Shopify Logistics. So both of those are US domestic plays. So we do about 200,000. We'll do about 200,000 truckloads this year domestically, moving freight around the country. 97% hands off the wheel, automated, just tech only. So we love that business. And Shopify Logistics does e-com fulfillment. Now that's going to be hurt by these merchants because most of the goods are made internationally. They'll be hurt there, but I think that business has a tailwind now because the fulfillment that was being done in Mexico and Canada is going to come back to the U.S. So it'll be balanced by that. I think that business will be in a good place. But we're definitely on the international side. Our customers are going to feel this, and that'll flow through to us to less volumes, probably lower prices, et cetera.
You think you'll like have revenue fall?
Yeah. We're modeling
Yikes.
that. We're modeling
Yeah.
that. I mean, our revenue is volume times price. So
Right.
both of those are likely to fall. So yeah, it could be financially, it's going to be tough. We're going to have to dig in, and Flexport's been through some rough periods over our lifetime, so we'll be fine. We'll find a way to get through it all, and make sure the main key is just focus on the customers and like get everybody talking to every customer you can and solve problems for them, bring new customers in, et cetera.
Do you feel like you're spending a lot of time like in one guy's head, or it's like watching Trump's tweets to sort of see where this goes? Or how much do you watch?
I don't have to watch Trump's tweets too much. They will always get forwarded to you. So, someone will send it to me when it's relevant. But I've been watching all the videos and reading white papers and stuff from like his policy wonks to try to get inside their head and understand what they're thinking. So some of the interviews with Besant and Lighthizer and this guy, Stephen Moran, who was like he was a treasury official in the first administration. He's like an economist who's kind of providing some of the underlying philosophical background for it all. Lutnick has done some interviews. So I'm just trying to just see how they think. Definitely spending time with that. And read all the orders myself, like executive orders and rules and stuff that come out. Don't rely on anybody. I'm going to read it myself and understand the text of it.
And you think that what you're reading is deciding the decision, is sort of going into the decision here, or it's sort of a Trump affinity for tariffs and then sort of backing in an explanation?
Lighthizer was his USTR in the first term, and his protege is the current USTR. Jameson Greer who was the chief of staff for Bob Lighthizer in the first administration. So when Lighthizer did an interview on Tucker Carlson like 2 weeks ago, it's like an hour long. And yeah, I think he gives you a lot of context, at least, again, to my point of like, don't argue with people unless you can make their own argument better than they can. I want to make sure I can understand I'm not saying I can make the argument better than Lighthizer. He's a good arguer. But I want to at least understand his point of view so I can be capable. I mean, it doesn't matter if I defeat him in battle. He's got all the power. I don't, but I can at least understand where they're coming from, start to think about, all right, if that's how they think, what does that imply that's coming next, et cetera.
I mean, so much of the Silicon Valley mentality is like, don't over orient around government, or like build. Obviously you have a company that has to deal with what government does. But like, if I'm a startup founder right now, like, are there businesses you think that people could be building to take advantage of this moment? Or like, I don't know, what should Silicon Valley be building given what's happening right now?
I mean, there's a lot of them are doing manufacturing, so that seems to make a lot of sense. Defense stuff seems to make sense. We seem to be trying to pick fights with people all over the world.
Build guns, get ready.
More weapons if we conquer. Yeah, I'm sure there's some signal to take from it all. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it. We're mostly like trying to figure out, from our perspective, how do we adapt Flexport? It's certainly need to diversify, be in more countries. We should be a network that ships everything everywhere. We shipped to and from 147 countries last year. Europe is our fastest growing market somehow.
Right. I guess there's opportunity for you if the tariffs percentages keep changing. It's like, oh, you can slide to this country and slide to that country.
We need to shift. And so we've launched a program for, I call it the Marco Polo program, but getting people from all over our offices, our existing network, where we have offices in 37 cities, getting people from those locations to go out to the next 10 countries that we're launching, get them to move there. So we're accelerating that because you need to be more diversified. We have offices, a big one in Vietnam and in China. Today, those are mostly focused on exporting goods to the United States and to Europe, but like Vietnam and China are big trading partners. We should get them working well to ship to and from each other. So we're starting to think these are long-term things that we needed to do anyways, but we're definitely pulling some of those plans forward. How do we accelerate that? We're also accelerating our roadmap in customs tech. Our team that builds technology there has been really focused on automation and like lowering the cost of customs transactions. Today, that's less important than like quality of data, reporting how, normally you just like don't need to have like, oh, how good am I at cutting over the duty rate from today to tomorrow? These things have been more stable. Now you're like, oh, I better build much better technology for reporting, for visualizing changes over time in the custom, in your duties, and calculating your landed costs of the goods. So like we're definitely reprioritizing a lot of stuff in our tech roadmaps.
My last question: is this good for robotic startups in the United States? I mean, on the one hand, it's like, okay, we're going to have to build more here. On the other hand, you were talking earlier about if the machine that makes the robots is from somewhere else, that hurts it. Yeah, are you optimistic about robotic startups given the tariffs?
I've been a robotics skeptic for a long time. It's like,
Interesting.
I'm not saying that, not on the long run. It's just a very high bar to clear. Like humans are very smart, very dexterous, and not that expensive.
We're good machines, us
They're not,
humans. Yeah.
they're just not that expensive, and they are pretty cool. Like you feed them well and you're nice to them, they're fine. So I think it's a very high bar to clear for these like humanoid robotics. I mean, you can invert. Charlie Munger always says, always always invert the problem. So you invert this, you go, hey, if there was a robot that you didn't have to buy, you could just pay it $20 an hour, and it had the IQ of a human, and it had the dexterity of a human, and it could just do any task you asked it within the warehouse. You'd be like, oh, cool. I'll take 500 of them and I'll put them in my warehouse. And so it's kind of it's a high bar to clear.
So you were not bullish about robots pre-tariffs, and now it's like, this isn't going to change the calculation.
Not that I'm not bullish. I think it'll happen over time. It's just a really high bar, and it's difficult to make that capex. Like I think the renting model, if you're a buyer of robotic system, which we would be, we're not developing robots, but we're a potential buyer of these systems, then I don't want, like, also the rapid pace of change also hurts adoption in some level, because I don't want to go spend $50 million on some system that 3 years from now there's way better system because of how
it's like electric cars. You want to lease them because they're going to keep changing.
Yeah. And so that, there's a lot of flaws. It's certainly not anti-robot by any means. I mean, I hope all this stuff becomes, I'm a big advocate, for example, in port terminal automation and robotics in the terminal. And so, but I don't know if this is net good or bad. I think anything that I think a recession is likely here. That's probably bad for everybody. I think that
because of this, like, you think a self-inflicted recession is coming, or?
I do. And I mean, JP Morgan has now made that their default forecast as a result of the tariffs. And they spend more time.
You're very fatalist about it. I mean, you know people who are hop, skipping, jumping away. Are you, when you're talking to them, trying to get them to put a little more heat on the administration that this is
this tariffs, I think, is so central. I mean, even Elon, he's posting Milton Friedman videos about free trade.
You're like, Silicon Valley does not have sway on this. There is no amount of asking Peter Thiel to like scream.
Pretty close to the president. We've seen them be best friends for the last 6 months, and he couldn't. I'm definitely hopeless, and they know I'm selling my own book. It's bad for my business, so no one should listen to me. I'm promoting my own interests here. So
right. Well, I wrote, after the election, I'm certainly not pro-Trump, but I was like, I hope tech wins. I'd rather the tech influence over Trump than anything else. But I literally said, but if he does tariffs, it's going to overwhelm any pro-business thing he did. I didn't even expect that he would do some of the like union stuff, trying to block like automation of
yeah, that one really pissed me off.
Yeah.
And the tariff. Anyway. Yeah, long list, but
anyway.